Yeah, na, yeah. Certain fire flames, now born again. Times really change. Talk truth, we've seen better days. The youth not safe again. What a damn shame. Talk truth, how that them a promo. So quick them selling out, them sold them cashing out. Yeah, well this is Kinetic 9 representing for I Just Star and the mindset. Then I move right, get your mind checked. Oh yeah.
Mindset, blessed love, manners and respect. Want to greet the item in the divine name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I the First, and also Empress Menen the First, Marcus I, Holy Emmanuel I, King Selassie I Jah, Rastafari. One more day above ground, beautiful viewers and subscribers, as they are them know. Life is our ultimate position, not no greater than that, no matter what go on. On top of what go on. Today, I've got a special guest on the platform. A very special guest, a very important guest, by the way. A brethren that I have the honor of meeting, I think 2 strong ago, at Fairfield House in Bath. And I want to take the time out now to introduce Ras Benji to the Mindset platform. Blessed love, my brother.
Yes, sir. Blessed love. It's a great honor to be here, reasoning with the eye and speaking to the world.
At large. Yes, my
yes,
king.
Through your platform from the city of Bath, you know.
Yes, king. Yeah, man. Give thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. It's an honor, and a pleasure to have the high here, my lord.
Yes, Ras. It was great to see the eye at Fairfield House, and all the content, you know, that's come from the house since then.
Yes, I.
It's great to proliferate the message of His Majesty's legacy at Fairfield House. So that's a good works.
Give thanks, my brother. Give thanks, manners and honors for that. Yes, I. And it also was a great vibes coming up to Fairfield House for the first time. You know what I mean? Been in England for numbers of years now, but you know, there's a first for everything. So it was truly an honor for me forwarding up to Fairfield House and to have that experience, and you know, to meet the eye officially, and also other brethren and sisters that was in the space and the day. So, you know, give thanks for the hospitality, my lord.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Ras Benji. So, all right. Talk to me about, you know, yourself as an individual. You know, where did the eye born? You know, what it was like for the eye growing up in the community that the eye grew up in?
Yes, sir. So just a quick introduction. I'm Ras Benji. I'm the operations manager at Fairfield House, home of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. I was born in this country, in the UK, and my dad's from Trinidad and Barbados as well. Their family from Barbados.
Okay.
And my mum's from this country. So yeah, and then my parents moved. Mum and stepdad moved to Cornwall when I was around 12. So that was I had a kind of different experience, you know, moving from up country to way out countryside. And it was interesting, you know, and I give deep thanks to the Almighty now for these experiences. But in those times, I experienced a lot of racism when I was younger, or, you know, every day racialized, you know, talking and these different sorts of things, you know. This is like early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s.
Wow.
In that time, you know, it's kind of behind out in the countryside. So that awoke my African consciousness and was making me ask repeatedly, who am I, and like, what makes me me. And I've always been thankful, that other part of my family in the Caribbean, and enough of them migrated to Canada as well. But my mum always kept the link, so I always had like pictures, and occasionally would go and see them, and so I had that bearing. But that experience, it made me want to leave the countryside quick, in that time,
See.
It wasn't, people go to these places like Cornwall for holiday, in the UK, but that was a place that I wanted to leave. So I went to school in Bristol for a short while, and then into London, and I lived in London for almost 16, 17 years.
Okay.
Till coming to Bath,
See. So why the I move from London?
Well, the actual reason is because I was asked to be a director at Fairfield House, and then I just said to my Empress, it's time to move to Bath. But obviously, a lot happened along the way in between, for that to manifest, and then for the move to Bath to manifest as well. So now I'm here serving His Majesty from his house. But yeah, it's quite a journey, and in between those times, so I've been traveled quite well, and seen a lot, and Rastafari, Rastafari has been that shining light for me, the faith and His Majesty, since like my late teens. That was like when I found Rastafari, and it caused this healing, within me, and balance as well. Made me find a real balance in myself, and to know His Majesty, it was everything. So because of that gift that He gave me, then I'm due to give, to Him, and that's what I try to do.
Yes, I. So how did the trad started for the I though?
It started. I was that time like 17, 18, and many of these experiences in London this time, and just feeling a kind of way, a bit lost in myself, and I was listening to Bob Marley one day, and I heard war, and then everything it was like an epiphany, and I realized that, wow, Bob Marley is living his life, or like his message is for another man's message, for His Majesty's message that he's put in the world. Bob Marley has taken up that sword, and now it's reached me, and it has meaning, it has real meaning. So then from that, I just began. I was at university this time, but I was studying His Majesty, my studies was like in His Majesty, and all the time, any extra time, I'm studying His Majesty, always asking the questions. And I wouldn't at that time say that I was Rastafari, but I was certainly on the journey. And then after a number of years, and finding Fairfield House as well, I sort of had this moment where I realized, like, it's been so much growth as a human being, as a man, that His Majesty has brought to me, spiritually, in every kind of way, educationally, in every kind of way.
See.
And then, so when, instead of separating myself from Rastafari, which I think many people do in the early stages, they say, oh, well, I'm not Rastafari for this reason or that reason, or you don't agree with everything, And that was when you get to that moment where you just realize, actually, I am Rastafari, because to defend His Majesty, to live for His Majesty is a glorious thing, and I know that personally. So that's me then. And then I trod to Ethiopia in 2016.
Pause.
Yeah, first time, I was the first person, like within my family, wider family, I'm the first one that's come to Africa, return to Africa,
Wow.
because my dad is Black Chinese, and
See.
my grandfather's Black and my grandmother's Chinese from Trinidad, yeah. And there's all different sorts of things, attitudes, within that wider family, and perceptions to do with Africa. People say, oh, well, we're Scottish, or we're Chinese, or, there'll be anything but African. So for me, and isolated as I was, and my experience to resonate with Africa, now it's like this cornerstone of my existence, It's like a real, it's a deep thing. So going to Ethiopia the first time, that was an overwhelming experience, Overwhelming. Like, it was like I was there, but I wasn't there, because there was so much emotion being in His Majesty's place, going to His Majesty where he went, It was very special, for sure, the first time in Ethiopia. But then the mystics is that, so that was big in my journey, and I touched Shashamane, Lalibela, all around Addis, Majesty places, met some, very inspirational Rastafari in Shashamane, like very inspirational individuals in Shashamane I met. Rastafari, and some Rast, nothing's perfect, in that sort of setting. They're working so hard, and the perseverance is amazing. But what they're actually taken up, yes, just so much works, like just from a ground level to build something, almost reflecting is what His Majesty did for Ethiopia, what Rastafari individually and collectively, but individually doing in Shashamane, and I respect that, learned a lot. And then to go to Lalibela as well, the first time, that was a mystic trod, and very humbling, to walk those paths,
But what's the people like though? What's their reaction towards His Majesty? Cause I'm sure you must have asked the local, their perception or their views, and the emperor.
For sure. So many people that we met love His Majesty. Very interested to meet Rastafari, very warm and friendly to Rastafari. Ethiopians generally, very friendly, hospitable, if you're not trying to invade their country or something. Generally that was a good experience, as Rastafari trod in Ethiopia first time. Young Rastafari as well. And then the mystic ties, when I got back later that year. So I kept up that pace of studying the Emperor, His Majesty, and any book that I could find about His Majesty, reading it, sharing with my brethren, sharing where I can, different presentations and so forth of my research. Sometimes, in a naive way, not everything, is toted. I would change, I would evolve different things and sharpen them up, but always trying to put things out there about the Emperor and spread the word about His Majesty, because I noted as well that within Rastafari there's so many almost like occupations or identities, and you could be about the herbs, you could be about the farming, you could be about the music. But for me, the real thing was His Majesty, because His Majesty is like my teacher, and that's how, gave me my faith and lifted me up. So then I had read this book and got very upset by this book called The Emperor, Downfall of an Autocrat by Ryszard Kapuscinski. I don't know if you've read that, Ras, or seen that book.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's the most read book or the most printed book on Emperor Haile Selassie across the world, and it's most found in universities, corporate bookshops, these sorts of things, yeah? And it was written by this man, Ryszard Kapuscinski, who was also like a Polish spy. He's like a communist Polish spy. And when he claimed to be in Ethiopia, he wasn't in Ethiopia. And there was a book in 2012 that was released by an author called Artur Domilowski. And he had been a student of Kapuscinski, like a protege of him, or someone that was sent to, write, almost like his life story, document his life. And when found out that he had been lying and he started following his trail, so go to Ethiopia, he found out that Kapuscinski wasn't in Ethiopia in the time that he said. He found numerous problems with the text that didn't translate into the Ethiopian tradition. And also the context of the time under the very violent government. And Prince Ermias has done a speech. I think it's at the Library of Congress or somewhere similar. It's called Agent Poeta. It's on YouTube. And I used to watch this often, and whenever this topic came up. But then through the mystics, I was on my way in London one day, and I seen a poster in the tube station, and it's in the West End. There's going to be a play called The Emperor in the London's West End, and I knew that there was a play in 1989. This is also on YouTube, The Emperor, Ryszard Kapuscinski, the BBC play, and it's very demeaning of Emperor Haile Selassie. And it was protested by Rastafari, by Ethiopians in exile, Ethiopian monarchists, including Prince Ermias himself, was at the protest in London in the 80s. They shut down the play eventually. But it resurfaced in 2016, and it was going to be in London's West End for 3 weeks. And in my limited networks at that time, I tried to raise awareness. I was on social media talking about it and so forth. But I didn't get much traction. And I felt like it was a mirror from the Almighty. It was a moment to say that actually you're trying to make ones aware, but you are the one that is aware. Yeah. So I need to do something. So I protested that play for 3 weeks, each night that it was on in London's West End, and tried to get to some matinee performances as well. And that got quite a lot of attention. Ethiopian supporters, Rastafari supporters, towards the end, joined by a few brethren and sistren for the last night of the protest as well. They
sound like a very famous activist, my lad.
Within our communities, here in the UK, Ethiopian Rastafari, I would meet people, I'd go to events, and then they would start saying, "You were the protester, well done," and shaking my hand and so forth. But it was not about that, it was about for His Majesty and the reason that I was standing there. And that was a crucial moment for my personal journey, because a lot of the things that were inside me came outside on those nights, because it was like a warfare, because I would be, in sometimes heated discussions, sometimes, very tough questions about the emperor, but I generally knew the answer, or knew where to look quickly, or to pose a question that might change their perception or open up their perception of His Majesty, to actually make them question. So that was very crucial, fiery time. And from that really changed things, because it was about 2009, 2010 that I first went to Fairfield House, early in my trod. many Rastafari involvement before then. And 2011, I first went inside. And after then, I asked if I could volunteer. And I had been helping out along the way at events on the social media, for doing presentations with schools and so forth, doing the radio station, and lots of different involvement as volunteer. And then that is what came. They asked me to be a director of Fairfield House.
Wow.
Which was an amazing honor. You know, it was so special. It is so special. It's the great responsibility. But I'm not actually a director. I'm the operations manager nowadays. But equally, you know, this is a great honor to serve His Majesty from his home and to actually be involved there.
Yes,
so,
powerful.
Along the way, you know, I have to mention that I was welcomed to Fairfield House by Ras Benji, Selassie.
One moment, Farai. I pray thee.
Yes,
your mic, sometime the volume go up and it's going down. So it's perfect like how you speak a while ago. It was.
Yes, I tried to hold it steady.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, Farai, continue.
Yeah, so just to mention, along my way, this is my journey. I was welcomed to Fairfield House by Ras Benji Selassie. He was our elder for the past 30 years at Fairfield House, the leader of the Rastafari community. And, you know, anything that I had to take to him spiritually or about His Majesty, you know, the wisdom to strengthen my trod and my works. Ras Benji was very supportive of and I seen him do amazing leadership, you know, perform amazing leadership acts for the community at Fairfield House. And obviously that's on both a younger level, like looking to an elder, but also as in a professional level. Once I was representing Fairfield House, working with him, it was always a great pleasure.
And what was he like though as a individual, you know, as a Ras? You know, was he someone who was very humorous? You know, what was his character like?
Yes, for sure. Like his countenance, you know, is very welcoming to all people and very approachable as a Rastafari, but a very serious elder as well, you know. And I compared, because his answers always were in a mystic way, whereas, you know, obviously spending a lot of my time in these academic circles and different sorts of, you know, that scholarly level, and his wisdom is on like a King Solomon, a mystic level, you know. It takes a while to absorb. And there's lessons still now. As I walk around Fairfield House, I can hear Ras Benji's voice and things are coming to pass, you know. So there's that was the level of Ras Benji.
And he will be greatly missed.
Yeah, he is. But he also prepared us for collective responsibility as a community, as the Rastafari community at Fairfield House. So, you know, it's a blessing to have been a witness, because when the Spirit of the Almighty is with you, when you're chanting, when you're praising Rastafari, and you've seen that, then you've been given a pathway to be able to replicate that. So now it's our responsibility to replicate that and to keep it going.
Yes, powers. Talk to me about your role, though. Your role as a manager now at Fairfield House. Talk to me about that position.
We have to start about what Fairfield House is, you know, because obviously this is His Majesty's home in Britain, and the family lived there for 7 years, the Ethiopian royal family, 1936 to 1943. His Majesty left in 1940. Empress Menen left in 1941. Then in 1958, the emperor gifted his home to the city of Bath, and that was for the good of the elderly. And this still continues to this day. This is the living legacy of Emperor Haile Selassie. The elderly, it became a residential care home in the 1960s.
Okay.
And then it was a residential care home up to 1993. And then it could no longer be used as a residential care home because there are new regulations in the country. And so it became a day centre for Bath's elderly. And then in moved a number of organisations for the elderly. And one of those organisations called Bath Ethnic Minority Senior Citizens Association, BEMSCA for short. And BEMSCA have been serving the elderly ethnic minorities of Bath. They're the elderly group that remains using Fairfield House. They serve the elderly ethnic minorities of Bath for the past 30 years. I think they're in their 31st year now. 30th or maybe 31st.
Wow.
And I think it's the 30th at Fairfield House, 31st they've been at there they've been existing as an organisation. And so during this time, this is another important pillar of Fairfield House that I'm about to mention. There's a lady called Pauline Swaby Wallace, and she has been the manager of BEMSCA for 30 years. And she has welcomed in the Rastafari community to actually praise inside Fairfield House, because the first use by the Rastafari community, the first time we have record of the Rastafari community at Fairfield House is in 1972, when they knew that the emperor was in the country. He was in a Night of the Garter parade at Windsor. And Rastafari in this country thought that he might visit Bath. So they were waiting for the emperor during his stay in the garden of Fairfield House. They weren't allowed to go inside because it was a residential care home. But they were waiting for him in the garden of Fairfield House in 1972.
Did the emperor turn up?
No, he didn't come to Bath during that time. 1954 is his big visit to Bath. That's 70 years ago this year. So anyway, Pauline Swaby Wallace welcomed in the Rastafari community to use Fairfield House inside to worship. She welcomed in the Ethiopian community. They've been using Fairfield House for 30 years this year also. They started off with the local Bristol Ethiopian community. There was Ethiopian church use of Fairfield House when they didn't have a church space previously. And now we have a much wider Ethiopian community, people from London, Manchester, Birmingham, Bath, Bristol, using Fairfield House. And so over those years and in recent times, twice it's happened. Fairfield House was threatened with sale. The council weren't respecting the gift of the emperor anymore. They saw it as a liability, and they threatened it with sale seriously. And community members rose up, and that includes Ras Benji. That includes Ethiopian elders that we have in our community, like Ezra Tesegay, Kifle Dereji, Fisia Comley, and Pauline, and then local people of Bath that were on the side of Fairfield House. They were speaking out, very aggressively against the local council and doing what they could. And another person that deserves mention is Sister Waleti Medhin. And she was in that early stages when Rastafari were outside the building. She was the first one to sort of connect with the local council, connect with the elderly care that was going on. And for Rastafari to actually have a look inside the building, for Rastafari to be able to contribute things. So in the downstairs living room, you saw a big photograph of Emperor Haile Selassie, and that was donated to Fairfield House. It's above the fireplace next to the pianola. That was donated to Fairfield House by the Rastafari Advisory Council, which is an organisation that Sister Waleti Medhin was involved in 1988. So this is a long-standing community involvement. This is heritage for Rastafari and Ethiopian communities in the UK and for the people of Bar. And then in modern time, in 2019, we made a community interest company so that we could speak with the council properly and begin to safeguard the future of Fairfield House and to not go into this jeopardy state anymore. And we've achieved that. So our community interest company has representatives of all those communities. So the Rastafari community, the Ethiopian community, and the people of Bar are all on the board of Fairfield House. And they we've achieved having a lease of the building in partnership with the local authority, which is Bath and North East Somerset Council. That's who owns Fairfield House because the Emperor gifted it to them, to the city of Bath. But we have the lawful use of the building now and preserved all that community use of the building. So that as a sacred space for Rastafari, that as a place of heritage for the Ethiopians, that as a living legacy for the elderly people of Bath. And this is in safe hands now. You know, we're working every day to preserve and protect this and to build on it and to celebrate who Emperor Haile Selassie is.
So let me just interject a little. So it's by chance, really, basically, you know, just listening to what they are saying. It's by chance and goodwill that Rastafari, the community, have the house to use along with the Ethiopian brethren and sisters.
But nothing is by chance, you know. We're talking about the divine, you know, because, for example, the local council, they just flippantly invited the ethnic minority senior citizens, Bemska. They just said, have a look at Fairfield House when they needed a premises. They didn't connect that to people of the Caribbean, to people of the African diaspora. The Emperor Haile Selassie is a giant. They didn't connect this. And so it just happens that this treasured gift to the city of Bath has been protected by an organization that, you know, is rooted in serving first the Caribbean elderly people of Bath. You've got Indian community of Bath, Chinese community of Bath, and people from all across the world that live in the city of Bath, elderly people that reserve the services of Bemska. And their welcoming spirit of Pauline amongst these community people, leaders such as Sister Waletti and Ras Benji, and then on the Ethiopian community, Kifle, Ezra, Fisiha, Abi, and others, Belete, they were also, you know, voicing for Fairfield House, you know, and championing it. There's been many friends and supporters of Fairfield House, you know, within the Rastafari community, many friends and elders that have passed through that I haven't mentioned, but they all deserve a mention. You know, everyone that has played their part is very important. And so you can imagine, because of all this activity from different communities, Fairfield House is a busy place because during the week we have the elderly and we have the social purpose organization. So we have a brain injury association that's resident there, a charity that helps women get back into the workforce that's based there, and other charities, all for social purpose, you know, like a charitable purpose for the people of Bath. And they have their headquarters there. And so this is, that's what's happening during the week. And then it tends to be on a Saturday or maybe a Sunday, depending if it falls on an important day. We could have a community celebration that's been arranged, and these are usually open for all to attend as well, to experience different cultural celebrations at Fairfield House. And now, through the year on Sundays, importantly, we deal with the heritage aspect. So we have tours, we have historical guided tours for visitors about the history of the emperor and his family. And we've developed a museum and heritage spaces in the house for visitors So there's a new exhibition, for example, and even this Sunday, or whatever Sunday this plays, if you look online, you may see on our website that we're doing the tour, you know, and people can come along for that. They get the history of the emperor for over an hour journey around his home and his family home, and then they can have lunch with us and then just enjoy the atmosphere, you know. So it's a very emotional and revelatory experience for many visitors, actually, to be immersed in the life of Emperor Haile Selassie. It's quite a special and unique experience in the world.
Yes, yeah, man, powerful. The I know about St. Agnes Place in London.
I know about it from community members. You know, that's my experience of it. So, for example, as a younger Rastafari, I'm 36 now, but I hear stories from my elders around me, and important community leaders in their different organizations, and they're almost words of warning, and they often reference St. Agnes Place. So this is, you know, we keep these things in our consciousness as lessons to learn from, you know, and not repeat mistakes. So Fairfield House doesn't slip into any kind of jeopardy from those aspects.
Rastafari. Yeah, because you know, we when you look at Fairfield House and then you reflect on St. Agnes Place, it would have not all probably the same significance, but you know, similar in a sense, knowing that, you know, it's a place where Rastafari, you know, the community gather and organize and do a lot of activity there, but you know, that has been taken away due to behavior, you know, and ill characters. I will say, but yeah, you know, we have to use our past history as example, and make sure that we don't slip into, you know, into what has happened before.
Yes, I.
Yes, my king. All right. His Majesty and His Divinity. Does it go beyond the Bible? You know, just looking at the Bible more while when you read it, sometimes it's you know, it's contradicting itself sometimes. Does His Majesty Divinity go beyond the Bible? What's your thoughts on that?
Personally, I think my instant reaction is to say no, you know, because within the Bible there's infinite scope, you know, to cite His Majesty's divinity and to know His Majesty and to know who His Majesty is as the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. So I think that just like His Majesty says and said in this country, you know, my part is to glory in the Bible. That's for sure, like all of our parts, you know, if we're citing it within that framework, is within that biblical story. So I think that there's also human aspect, like to the divine altogether. You know, His Majesty has asked that question, and he tells people that considering the Almighty to go into the secular world, and that to me is very, very meaningful. Like it resonates because of some of my experiences on this trot, and experiences at this time fulfilling this role at Fairfield House, because it's not, my faith drives me, you know, it's like the thing that will make me push further and further in what I could achieve for His Imperial Majesty there, you know, and using both the house and myself as an instrument, you know, to show the world what happened to this man, what he experienced, what his challenges that he overcame were, and how he inspired others. And that's not just Ethiopians, it's worldwide. And I think that if there's divinity, or you can find divinity within the secular world, that's very deep, because obviously His Majesty has had to administrate and to lift up Ethiopia and to be like a visionary modernizer. And there's so many challenges in that task, and he's still able to see and feel the Almighty's presence, you know, in the secular world. So certainly from my experience, I can see many things that from the Bible, and then likewise from His Majesty, because His Majesty to me is like, I can see the whole of the Bible in His Majesty and His life and different portions reflecting themselves. So then that reflection also, I then cite in some challenges, you know, with organizing or disruption or disloyalty or things that don't seem possible, and you know, you are under pressure to achieve them. And you find a closer relationship to the Almighty, and you almost know, or you're striving to know, humanity better. And I think that this isn't outside the Bible, but there is other aspects to the Emperor's divinity. So, for example, you know, there's a famous documentary. I say famous, but famous for I, you know, Footsteps of the Emperor, made by a great brethren and mentor of mine, you know, Professor Sean Naphtali Sobers, Haile Mariam, his baptismal name. He made this documentary over 20 years ago, interviewing residents of Bath. And within that documentary are testimonies. And there's a man, and he says that he'll never forget this experience of being in the presence of someone that was more than a man. You know, and talking about his eyes, a sense of truth, honesty, perfection. That's like, he might not even be talking within a framework of the Bible, but he's citing in his language what he saw in His Imperial Majesty. And you will find so many of these testimonies. And one of the projects that we've been doing at Fairfield House is actually recording these testimonies and people that met the Emperor. And we've recorded in modern time news stories about this, from this angle of people, you know, feeling very unique experience when they were in the Emperor's presence.
Powerful. I saw you online talking about this little gold stick that His Majesty gave to was it a Scottish girl?
She was from Ireland.
Ireland.
She was a nurse in Bristol, and yeah, it's an amazing story. As part of the tour of the house, you know, you see this object, and I'll give a very brief rundown. Essentially, His Majesty gifted this nurse a very small golden stick. It looks like a knitting needle, a large knitting needle almost. And he said to her something mystic when he gave it. He said, he intended to give it, because he said, I'm going to send it to you. And he said, it's not the material value of this object, it's what it will do for you. And the lady thought that was very strange, and then she was getting on board a ship to Ireland, and she had received this package from the Emperor, and she opened it, and she was holding this golden stick, and she dropped it. She chased after it on the deck of the ship, and that very moment the ship was raked by Nazi machine gun fire.
Wow.
And people lost their lives. And so this lady, Irish lady, up to her late 80s, she said that the only reason that she lives and breathes is because Emperor Haile Selassie gifted her this golden stick, and it represented him as a man of prophecy. And so one could say, you could come at that and say, oh, that's, not within the Bible framework. But if the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah gives you an object and can, have, he can see, he's proven, World War II is broken out at this time. It's his prophetic ability and his in tuneness with the frequency of what is going to happen to in the future is very accurate. And so I still think it would fit within the framework because he's the returned Messiah, so there's what isn't possible in that. But on a more historical level, obviously we recorded that testimony. To be honest, it totally blew my mind because I think we all can, and in every stage, could be with these conceived ideas about His Majesty, and He will open our minds in all these aspects, and is wider and greater than we've ever been, but by actually trusting in Him. And it's amazing to now be able to use that story to show who His Majesty was in a more human aspect and something very surprising to people, but that also reflects his place in history in World War II.
Yes, I. Based on what I say, it made me develop probably about 3 different questions in my head now, different from what I have right down here in front of me. But all right. So when the I said that now, what's your thought on when His Majesty say that human doesn't emanate from a deity?
Yes, Bill McNeil, 1967 Royal Train interview. That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. So it's important, the interviewer Bill, he says, Your Majesty, there are many Christians throughout the world that see you as the return of Jesus Christ. And His Majesty says, I've heard that idea, which is one thing. And he says, I've also met certain Rastafarians. And I told them, man is mortal, will be replaced by the oncoming generation. And human beings should never make the mistake of assuming or pretending that deity emanates from the divine, a human being, or the other way around, human being emanates from a deity.
Yeah.
So it's a very mystic answer, because first thing we have to know is His Majesty, He doesn't answer the question. He gives the teaching, which reflects in the Bible when people are asking Jesus Christos, are you the Messiah, and he just turns them away, and it's what you say. What do you say that I am? That sort of scene. But we have to note that there is a trace of Christians throughout the world, citing His Majesty in this way, also stemming from his place in World War II, and what happened in those years and what he was able to achieve after that. And his output as well, what he represented for peoples of the world. So there's those elements, but His Majesty was also giving us a critical teaching. This is my personal belief, is that the very essential message to take away is about the impermanence of the human body, and we might not see Him, but the Almighty is in everything, the Almighty is forever, this is omnipotent, it's not just if you don't see Him. because it's not an image, thing. This is actually an output, a frequency.
True.
And so that's very important, I think. Yeah, there's layers and layers. I've done a whole reasoning podcasting about that for about an hour or 2 hours. Yes, sir.
Rastafari. So all right. So based on that, then, cause you have a lot of Ras that oppose the Bible and burn the Bible. You know what I mean? How you see that? Do you see that as ignorance, or what do I view?
I think that everyone is just reflecting the stage that they are in their journey, and it's also a choice, because it's, where do you want to stand in relation to His Majesty, and how close do you want to get to Him, there is that choice out there also. But I think that for me, it's like my perception of the origins of the Rastafari faith, Rastafari movement, is from Ethiopianism, through transatlantic slavery, one's being stripped of their identity as Africans, and the practice of being put into the biblical framework, by the slave master, but then understanding that you're Ethiopians because of the mystics of the timing of the King James, and that, those words being throughout, and knowing that Ethiopia is the land of black peoples, and that development of that through emancipation to the Marcus Garvey times in the 1920s and the times of the Ethiopianists in the 1930s, and that shift towards the emperor. So for me, is everyone in the Caribbean knows that His Majesty also is called the King of Kings and Lion of Judah. And people maybe take that lightly. They think, oh, Rastafari is just saying that. But obviously, factually, His Majesty is called the King of Kings and has the title, the Conquering Lion of the Tribe of Judah. And the reason why these titles are special is because they come from the Bible. So, that it can't really be missed. Like, if you want the fullness from His Majesty, there's so much, even in His words and His speeches, He's echoing scripture many times. And when you read the scripture, you will then realize, oh, wow, His Majesty said something very similar, and you start looking it up and you find it's in the Proverbs and, then His selected speeches or in the Gospels and selected speeches or important utterances. His Majesty's echoing them all the time. So it helps you be more grounded if you want to be close to His Majesty.
Rastafari, because is a similar thing when you look on the church and His Majesty, right, and the movement, because His Majesty, as we know, is a Christian king, right?
Yes, I.
And within Rastafari, you have some Rastafari brethren and sistren who go into the church because His Majesty sent the church in Jamaica at a very pivotal time, a critical time. Zane. So you find brethren and sistren going into the church who were Rastafari brethren and sistren, who were Nyabingi brethren and sistren. So how do you see it now that a lot of ones still wouldn't go the distance, Zane, as going into the church and becoming baptized as His Majesty have done, and many other Rastafari brethren and sistren?
Yes, I think that at the very least, you should respect His Majesty his views, and I think you should respect his words. And I think that even if you weren't ready, you were not at that stage, even if you won fire, that should be very thoughtful and considerate in terms of like what exactly are you upset with, what exactly isn't working for you, because His Majesty, he's saying that in any version of the Bible the message is one and the same, it's eternal. So there are differences here, but there's a crucial message. So I think that to be with Christ is the most important thing, in that sense, with His Majesty, with the divine, with the Almighty, and to have that in your consciousness, the lamb and the lion in the fullness. That would be, that would be the least. But obviously, the first thing that's important to address is that, His Majesty sent the church to the Caribbean in Trinidad because the people, African people in the Caribbean, are asking for an authentic Christian tradition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in Jamaica now, as we know, His Majesty had long-standing relationships with Rastafari. There's references that you can see that Rastafari attending the coronation of the emperor, So His Majesty had long-standing relationship with Rastafari brethren and awarded them gold medals. And at the same time, obviously, there was riots, there is a tension in Jamaica between the colonial government or new government of Jamaica against Rastafari, and all across the Caribbean, in fact, And so Rastafari resisting that with the same Ethiopian spirit, fighting the colonizer. And His Majesty has sent the church into the midst of that also, which is a contextual thing, and it's a message about conduct, and about faith and about His way, because there's things that you learn within the Ethiopian tradition studying the emperor, things like it's very offensive to raise your voice within His Majesty's culture, It's very offensive to raise your voice. So obviously for I, this is a challenge. Like, this is something that we have to adjust to, And it's the same within our view of the Bible, within our view of the Almighty and so forth. Because if we're citing His Majesty as the Lion of Judah, and we, all this evidence, because there's a lot of evidence within the Ethiopian tradition. For example, just quickly, at the coronation of the emperor, they sang, "May your reign be for 1,000 years," straight from the book of Revelation. There's many artworks, there's many symbols, architectural symbols. There's many things that the emperor left there that were like cryptic messages that were to be revealed through education, and I believe there's many more as well. And so there's all this evidence that His Majesty is who He is. So if that's how we're citing Him, then to follow that through, we know that the glory is through the slain lamb, and you have to wash your clothes in the blood of the lamb, for salvation, and to be in that, eternal element, 1,000 years government with His Majesty. This is a requirement of that. Rastafari have their place. Just Rastafari alone, the tradition, is very important, because we've got to understand a wider context thing, is that His Majesty's name has been tried to be extinguished in the world. And Rastafari prevented that from happening, and it prevented every day from happening. So this is a fact also. So Rastafari have their place. The church also betrayed His Majesty in some aspects, and we know that, there was Ethiopians and Rastafari. An elder that both you and I interviewed, Amdi Zion, who, exited or was forced to exit the church in that time of the revolution time of the Derg.
Yeah.
So there was, but the faith, the church is in Christ, that's what His Majesty says. So this is what we've got, it's not just a building, it's not really a building. It's not one organization. And we're also very bruised peoples, and so experiences can and just within my own framework, you have when I was younger, I wanted to leave this country. I wanted to leave. I was in the Caribbean for a long time, and I just didn't want to come back to the UK at all, so that these things change and develop because the Almighty revealed to I that I also have a place to fulfill, and are where you need to be in that picture.
Rastafari. Yes, I. Yeah, man, give thanks. Hold a question, I hope I have time. I hope we have enough time, though.
Yes, sir.
The Bible, since we on that line, and His Majesty saying that it transcends all boundaries and barriers. It remain the same. The Ethiopians have a different canonized Bible from what we are accustomed to out here in the West, which is the King James version, and the Ethiopian version has more than 66 books. So them have the complete version of the Bible, and we have a translation of the Greek or the Hebrew or the Amharic or Ge'ez text. You see that though, because it was His Majesty speaking from the perspective of the entire canonized version that he have in Ethiopia, different from what is out here in the West.
I think that His Majesty was talking about all the Bibles, because when you read the scripture, there's a message that's trying to be conveyed, and that's the essence of His Majesty's teaching. There is about the message, and also in modern time, in our generation and before, for the last 100 years more, about around that time, the Apocrypha, is available. So these other books that are part of the Ethiopian canon can also be read. It's just they're not included as like standardized. And obviously, even with that term, apocryphal, it's kind of like saying that it's like a side story, like it's not part of the main story, So it is there for the seekers. Like the knowledge is there for the seekers to get the same message. But I think that overall, that lesson that there's more books in the Ethiopian Bible just tells us why we should get to know His Majesty's church and His Majesty's place in the church also, because that is very, whether you are standing as an outsider or as an insider, as someone that's been baptized, I think that to be respectful and understanding and see how you can improve yourself based on some of these concepts that are so close to His Majesty that you can't really go wrong there. And likewise, I would say to Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, that to get to know Rastafari, to understand the journey that Rastafari have been on and their place in the world, and the popularity of the Rastafari culture and that burden that they carry for Ethiopia and have carried to protect Ethiopia and His Majesty in the world, to understand that and to see Rastafari's place as a unifying force, within communities on a micro level or a macro level. Rastafari has been a unifying force and a force to overcome, and to bring people together, all the cultural products of Rastafari, these things, they deserve respect within both ways, both ways.
Yes, I. Totally. How do you view yourself as a Rasta man? Because within the movement, you have 12 tribe, you have Nyabingi, you have Bobo Shanti. How do you see yourself in that aspect?
For His Majesty, that's the basic thing, the absolute essential for me. When I was in London, I used to attend, events of the Nyabingi National Council, and I work with them closely now at Fairfield House. I work with EWF members closely. We've achieved great things at Fairfield House. A large part of my studies as a historian, as a researcher, are to do with the history of the Ethiopian World Federation and Dr. Malachi Bayan, and obviously that period of exile and Ethiopia's tribulations in the 1930s and 40s. So I think that there's ones to learn. My Empress, her father-in-law, is in the 12 tribes, and when I visit in Barbados, I would attend with him also. When I was visited Shashamani, I made sure to go and sit with all the mansions to just see, to hear some stories, to learn something from different perspectives. But earlier this year, I was baptized, and that's reflecting my personal journey in my faith. And I was baptized in a very special place, Miske Hazanan Medhani Alem, which is the consoler of the bereaved, and it's known as Sedetnil Medhani Alem, which is the savior of the world in exile. And this is the church in Addis Ababa that the emperor built to house the Tabot Medhani Alem, which he gave him his spiritual strength whilst he was in Bath. And I was involved leading the project for the Sacred Garden to preserve that area of Fairfield House. So it's like a personal, very special thing to have the honor, for that to be bestowed on me. But that doesn't change, because Rastafari is His Majesty's name, and that's His Majesty, and His Majesty brought me this far, and inspires me as a human being, and I am committed to His Majesty's ideals, and His Majesty's ideals are to save the world from ultimate destruction. So this is a big task, and with all that's underneath that, we've got obviously the liberation of the suffering people, to move Africa forward, to uplift ones all across the world with the benefits, and to proliferate Ethiopia, as well, like Ethiopian views, Ethiopian respect, the Ethiopian church, these things are all within that. But it's a personal journey. And when I was 5 years old, I told my mum I want to be baptized. And all those years later, on all different kind of journey, that's how it came to be, And my godfather is Medhani Alem. That's through the mystics. This is how it happened at the church. and my baptismal name is Haile Selassie. So it really felt like a moment that I was reborn, and I think as a ritual, like for human beings, like to access eternal life, you know, in the way that Jesus Christus has described. I think that's important. Yeah, very important. I think that everyone can also access the divine in their own ways, and I think that for me, those spiritual heights they come in quiet moments of, you know, very quiet, almost like isolated moments. You know, by myself in tends to be holy places, or could be anywhere. You know, it's not necessarily in a congregation. Personally, where I'll reach the highest feeling, you know, of that closeness with the Almighty. So the work's are important and the faith is important.
Yes, I. Selassie, I know. Yeah, man. Give thanks. Yeah, alright, Maja. The eyes of the eyes of mixed heritage, right?
Yes, I.
Alright. How do you see reparation and repatriation? Do you think that you know, for the involvement that, you know, England play, the role that they play, you think that they should be playing a role now to compensate and help to repatriate Rastas who, and not just Rastas, but, you know, Africans in the diaspora who want to go back to Africa?
Yes, I think that reparations need to be in the form of repairing the inequality of opportunity, of access to education, of access to healthcare. You know, I traveled widely in the Caribbean, and there's a big difference to the opportunities that I've had in this country to a fellow ancestor of transatlantic slavery that will be living in the countryside across the Caribbean, you know, and what they're actually able to have access to. And that is directly related to the, you know, stripping of the country for generations, and to that downpression, educational, you know, in many different aspects that come through. So for me, reparations and the talk nowadays is almost like sometimes it feels like on a low level, like people talking about a cash thing, you know, like when's the cash coming? And what you have to realize is like that cash would just get absorbed into the local economy where it's given, most likely, you know. So that's not the impact, that's not the change, you know. You want actually change to come at a institutional level, right down and through the world, you know. That would be very important. So that's reparations for me. I think His Majesty is also on our side. You know, he sought reparations for the war. He had different proxies, you know, or people his supporters that were taking up that cause. Sometimes the political balance, you know, maybe not allowed the circumstance to follow through, but nevertheless he's spoken in favor of repair. And repatriation, I think, is really important because, like, related to reparations as well, I've had the opportunity to trot to Ethiopia twice, you know, amazing. But likewise, you know, when I go to the Caribbean and you talk about it, it can feel like a million miles away, like an impossibility because of the economic situation. So repatriation and ones actually touching Africa is very important, or to actually move Africa centrally into your consciousness, Ethiopia centrally into your consciousness is very important. I also would feel that, as a researcher and historian looking into Rastafari communications also, sometimes I have felt as if, why are we writing to the monarch in this country, the UK, asking for ships and so forth? Yes, they are owed, but we can also, in the light of Marcus Garvey in his entrepreneurial capacity and many other, amazing ones from the diaspora, we can also make that a reality ourselves. We live in a time where you could, although it may seem impossible because of the down pressure, it's not actually impossible, is it, to return to Africa? It's possible in this time. We have to be thankful for that and use the benefits of modern technology, as His Majesty would say.
True. I agree. With the eye on that level. That in terms of getting ships and so on. Yes, we can do it, and I think we should do it. Zine, but
yes, one aspect I realised I missed, is because as someone of mixed heritage, obviously I also have an opinion on how white people, should repair their attitudes and their approaches to anyone, but in particular black people, but anyone that has been affected by colonialism, because there's two sides to this, and His Majesty teaches us greatly, is that there is allies within this place, within this country too, that are fighting for change, and that's important in the wheels of motion. It's important to have different perspectives towards the change, and that's what will bring it about, this huge change.
That's important you said that, and it lead me to ask this question, because as the eye is saying that colonialism has impact the African community very bad, Zane, and through all of that, Rastafari has come about, the movement, due to that depression and oppression, right? Now, in the eyes of many Rastafari brethren and sisters, Zane, from a Pan-African point of view, they don't see Europeans coming into Africa and settling into Africa, but you do have a lot of European Rastas today, and some of them, you will see some of them in Africa. What is your view on that?
It depends on their attitude, to the thing, because His Majesty had many Europeans uplift Africa, and even Italians, built many of the holiest places, for His Majesty, cathedrals and so forth. And I think everyone has their place, and their potential, but you shouldn't have this attitude of expecting everything, or entitlement. Definitely you need to be the humblest of the humble, because it's not an easy road, you know. But within the story, His Majesty's story, there is examples on all racial dynamics of how to serve him, and that for me is the essence of Rastafari, is serving His Majesty. So I think that we, you know, it might be the same for the eye, but you know, economically, living in this country, when you trod to a place far out in the next country, anywhere across the world, and you meet people, or maybe it'll be in this country, where you meet people that are severely disadvantaged, you feel obliged, like a weight, that you must show kindness, you know, you must like help do what you can, you know, to change things. And say your ancestors were oppressors in any time in history, in recent history, that has had a causal effect today, you also have an obligation to be in the midst of that, to be trying to repair things. So that is almost like reparations isn't just a term for black people. It really needs to be a concept that is fully understood by white people also, and all people, you know. That would be very, very crucial for that. So personally, the other thing is that Ethiopia and His Majesty have to, if they're staying in the center point, then this is an all-nation situation. You know, we're uplifting Africa and it's African trod, but this is, you know, fully expect, if His Majesty is who he says he is, or is who if we say he is, then this is going to be the worldwide scene, you know, because the Messiah isn't, you know, he's there for everyone. It's not just one set of people. One set of people might cite him, but he's there for everyone to uplift, you know.
Natural.
Yes,
Natural. Yeah, because if man and woman was created in the image and likeness of the Most High, then, you know, all man and woman is entitled, you know, to worship and praise the Most High Creator. You know what I mean? There's no wire fence or any restriction. You know, no one can put a restriction and who praise or worship the Most High.
Yes, I.
So, all right, my lad. Africans for the Africans, home and abroad, born and unborn. A slogan from Marcus Garvey.
Do you know who said it before then?
Go on.
Martin Delaney. Yeah. Delaney, he was, you know, inspirational figure in time before Garvey, you know, for black people, civil rights, and that was his phrase that Garvey's paraphrasing.
Saying and Garvey really amplify it then.
Yes, I. He's known for it.
Rastafari. What's the thoughts and the whole talk about Marcus Garvey disrespecting His Majesty?
Yes, I. Big topic as well. Like recently, we had a day at Fairfield House, an evening, discussing that controversy exactly, you know. And I come at it from the scholarly perspective, you know, to history. So there is a clear evidence trail of, you know, Marcus Garvey's words towards the emperor, and also the reactions of Dr. Malachi Bayen, you know, close to the emperor, speaking through the voice of Ethiopia, defending His Majesty as well. And so evidentially, you know, that's what occurred. There was tension there that unfolded, and His Majesty obviously has many things going on at this time. He's got the weight of his country on his shoulders. He's an emperor in exile. He's written in his autobiography that some people will write the story of my life, representing as truth what in fact derives from ignorance, error, or envy, you know, at this time, at this exact moment also. So
you think it was Marcus he was talking about when he said that?
not just Marcus, but Marcus is certainly included in that, in the twist that he took against His Majesty, you know. Marcus Garvey, that I might, you know, you have to step back, you know, but Marcus Garvey on a factual side is known for Speaker's Corner. You know, he was saying proudly, "I'm for Mussolini, down with Haile Selassie." And that was in the presence of ones like George Padmore, C.L.R. James. So, you know, this is known that Marcus Garvey took this turn. But we also know that in that John the Baptist role as the forerunner, preparing the minds of African people to actually cite the Messiah and give their support to Ethiopia, his work is critical. And also, like John the Baptist says, you know, I must decrease, so he must increase. So it was almost like mystically, Garvey had attuned himself to this frequency. And at that important moment, a lot of support from Africans in the diaspora went to His Majesty when it was really needed, and His Majesty thanked them directly in his autobiography. So, you know, it's all in the mystics of the Almighty, you know, and of how things played out. But later on, in 1963, His Majesty said, "When we say Africa for the Africans," and then he expanded on that, you know, he quoted Garvey. And of course, His Majesty laid a wreath 3 years later, 1966, at the grave of Marcus Garvey. So he saw his place in the upliftment of the African people. So I think there's a lesson in it for all of us, because sometimes it's the overall impact that you will make, you know, that will leave that impression, you know, in humanity. Is what you're striving for overall, you know.
So one shouldn't really be taking this as a disrespect then from Garvey.
Well, it is a disrespect. It's a massive disrespect, you know, because His Majesty is going through the massacre of Addis Ababa. This is 1937 that we're talking about, you know, and Marcus Garvey has changed his tune. But if one's look into what Dr. Malachi Bayen said in defense of the emperor, then for me, there's no question that he outlines that, you know, Garvey is wrong in the stance that he's taken. And it's questionable at that time, after such a career of uplifting black people, of raising their consciousness towards Ethiopia, why at this very important moment he is, you know, turned another way. So for me personally, there is no question, you know, that Garvey took that stance. I understand that especially from the night that we had at Fairfield House reasoning about it, that to Rastafari this doesn't matter, you know, they knew this all along. That's what the elders said at Fairfield House, you know, in this thing, because it doesn't stop the love of Marcus Garvey for what he's done for our people. So yeah, we have to, just as Rastafari, we're not Garveyites. We might be influenced by Garvey's ideals, but we're for His Majesty. So we're looking at this wider picture and how Marcus Garvey helped us reach where we are today, you know. So there's, you know, we have to be thankful for that.
You think there could be a Rastafari movement without Marcus Garvey?
I think there would be, but I think that it would be a different story and a different level of impact, you know. I think that with Leonard Howell, and even Leonard Howell is talking about the ideas emanating from the United States and Africans in diaspora over there. Robert Webb, the Reverend, I think it's Reverend Webb, and so forth. You know, they're talking about this universal black redeemer that's going to be crowned from Ethiopia. So it's possible that this would still grow, you know, but it wouldn't be the same, and it wouldn't be you've got to look at the wider picture, because Garvey's influence and the upliftment that he gave to Kwame Nkrumah, for example, and Kwame Nkrumah then in turn plays his giant role in the formation of the OAU with His Majesty as the father figure. But really, a lot of the power potential for disruption rested with Nkrumah. You know, like if he had walked away then, we'd be in a totally different story. So if Marcus Garvey's, you know, ideals brought him that far, then that's really important, because the OAU is an example not only to Africans, which is primarily an example for Africans, but it's also an example just for humanity, because what's going on in there at the OAU is that there's potential for this United States of Africa, and nations just suddenly drop their borders, like these radical are going around, and His Majesty's coming in, actually saying that in our diversity and the diversity of our traditions, there is a great strength, and just as I've been able to make Ethiopia independent and to resist colonization, that is your destiny. And then once we've achieved that, we stand up together in one unity, but we're also individual pieces that make that strong castle, So that's really important, because the war against fascism overall for His Majesty, fascism is this trying to exert one world view, forcefully on people. And His Majesty is obviously for a different approach. And I think it is aired in its fullness at the OAU, which is a great foundation for the African continent.
Yes, True. I think I have two more questions for the eye. I know it just gone over 12 now. See, so I've got two more questions. I mean, I've only more questions still, but we just go wind it down.
Yeah, that'll be part 2, Rasta.
Yeah. His Majesty, seeing, His Majesty, His Majesty Council. His Majesty Council. Do you have any record of His Majesty Council? His Majesty First Council, I think it's called.
First Council. When are you talking about? What period? 1930 must be.
Yeah, round about that time. I don't have the specific date still, to be honest. Yeah. But round about that time. All right. The question what may I ask the eye still, because I'm reasoning with a lot of elder. One elder specifically, Zane, and he was saying to me that His Majesty don't answer to certain names. See?
Yes, sir.
Like Yahweh, Elohim, and all these other different names that we use to call God in. See? All right. Jah is one of those names. The elder say His Majesty don't like to be called by. I just wanted to know, because I know there is a scholar. I know there is very learned. I wanted to know if they have ever come across that information where His Majesty is denouncing Jah, the name Jah.
No, personally, I've never come across that. I've read accounts and heard from elders personally that met His Majesty, Rastafari elders, and His Majesty was respectful, and he said as many know, you know, who am I to disturb their belief, you know? And constantly, it's a context thing. People got in the history. It's important to get the full picture, because if you just looked at that quickly, then you might not realize the context that the Jamaican government hate Rastafari. You know, they've almost invited His Majesty to come to Jamaica to solve the Rastafari problem. You know, we know that's the context.
Yeah.
And so His Majesty then gracefully avoiding all those things. That's very powerful. That's very, very powerful. And then likewise, we should listen to His Majesty, you know, if He's sending us help, you know, in different aspects, to sharpen that. Because Rastafari, another quote that His Majesty said to a Rastafari brethren that's on record is, he said, "Your works are purposeful and must continue."
Yes, I. Yeah, man. Yes, I. Strength.
Yes, sir. But I mean, when you're addressing His Majesty, it would be His Imperial Majesty, you know. That's Emperor Haile Selassie. And Rastafari, after 1930, you know, it was almost illegal. You know, His Majesty had made a strong statement, to say that no one should call him Rastafari after 2nd of November 1930. So there's power. His new name, is Haile Selassie. So there's a reason for that as well.
So why is it that we still, you know, refer to him as Rastafari? You know, I know that is it. Well, that wasn't his name still, in a sense. You know, it's Lich Mokanen, Lich Tafari Mokanen.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're not. No Rastafari is calling His Majesty Jah Rastafari in a disrespectful way, and intention is everything, you know. So I think that's its tradition and its intention. We're exalting the Almighty, and that's within our tradition. That is the way that we do that exaltation, you know. And we know that Jah is in the Bible, written right there in the King James. Obviously, it's Yah, but that's a name of the Almighty. So it's the ultimate reverence that we're offering. And, you know, within the Ethiopian tradition, there's wedis, there's poems of praise. And likewise, they are putting many of these compliments on His Majesty, you know. So there's a mirror of Ethiopia and Rastafari in the faith and loyalty to the emperor. And I think loyalty is a big thing in that context, because His Majesty saw in Jamaica the loyalty of those people to him, even if, you know, is almost like alien from Ethiopian culture, but the loyalty is what is deserved, and he deserved all along, and it's not being shown by all of the Ethiopian people, and ones that he expected to support him have betrayed him. And, you know, that's the position that the emperor's in. And so Rastafari loyalty to his ideals and to what he professes is very important to overstand.
Yes, true. Yes, my king. One final thing more on the Ivy talk to me about is the Ark of the Covenant being in Bath.
Yes, So the British newspapers did actually speculate that the Ark of the Covenant could be at Fairfield House. It's not an impossible speculation by a long way, because you think that the Italians are invading the country. So there could, you know, His Majesty stopped in Jerusalem as well. So it's not an impossibility. But I think generally what we're talking about is the tabots, and tabots are sanctified replicas of the Ark of the Covenant. And so often the Ethiopian priests, if they say the Ark of the Covenant, they're talking about the tabot because it has the power of the Ark of the Covenant. And the tabot that was sent to the emperor from Jerusalem was called Medhani Alem, which is another name for Jesus Christos. So Medhani Alem and Jesus Christos can be interchangeable. So the tabot was known as Jesus Christos in exile, Jesus Christ in exile. That was the name of the tabot, of the spiritual strength of the emperor, with his prayers for Ethiopia, for the suffering Ethiopian people, and to the Almighty to liberate his country, were strengthened by his proximity to this tabot. So this is the same tabot that is in the church, a special church built in Ethiopia to house it. And it's called Miskei Hazanan Medhani Elam. And His Majesty is the guardian of the monastery of Miskei Hazanan. Still today, that's like one of his titles, like a local title in that church. And he's the defender of the Orthodox faith, as we know, wider, the defender of the faith, Ethiopian Orthodox faith also. But in this particular church, he's known as the guardian of the monastery of Miskei Hazanan. So, this tabot was very important. And in Ethiopian history, it is really, really very special. But all the tabots, because of their shared power and in relationship to the Ark of the Covenant, through the Ethiopian perspective, they're representing the divine, they're representing the law, very important. They're representing that covenant and that the Almighty has made, So, and they're representing Mary also, Mother of Christ, the carriage of the law, the carriage of the Savior. They're representing. So, just to an normal Ethiopian that never goes into the church would never ever see a tabot. This is such a holy item. They would see it being carried, wrapped in cloths and festivals like Timket, but they would never see the tabot unless they were inside the church and in a very important role. So, the Ark of the Covenant, there is possibility that it could be in Bath, but what is usually referred to when we're saying that is the Ethiopian Orthodox Christians talking about the tabot, and that's how they're bringing it across into the English language. But then on a spiritual level, for I and I also, His Majesty is a representative of the Ark of the Covenant, and that is very important as also, His Majesty's place, because the Ark of the Covenant is also this symbol of the throne, the throne of David, and obviously the story of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. So it's like critical to His Majesty's tradition, His Majesty's worldview, to have a relationship with the Ark of the Covenant. So this is something that is unique to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
Rastafari. Yes, my king. Yeah, man. Give thanks. The clearance and the clarity.
Yes, it's been an honor, to share with the eye and to link with the eye, and I look forward to working together, more works together.
True.
And Fairfield House, because Fairfield House is this symbol of Ethiopia in the world outside of Ethiopia. One of the landmarks. It's holy places for Rastafari. So there's enough works to be done, and for sure, like it's important for if we're going to change things in this reality that we're in. If you're in this country for a day or wherever you are in the world, for how long, that's your opportunity to make a difference.
True.
So Rastafari, one of my elders direct, I had a good relationship with Professor Benjamin Zephaniah, another great of Fairfield House. And he used to say to me, you can do more. I was working with disabled people in London and at the university where he worked. And he used to say to me, we'd be reasoning, he'd say, no, you can do more. So that's like a thing that we all actually have a place in this, because what would being a Rastafari be in the UK without Benjamin Zephaniah in modern time, So that is, because, he, in popular culture, in programs, question time, politics thing, he's raised Rastafari to that level where we're able to actually interject and to give an opinion that is representing good. So he's opened that door for us. So in modern time, that's like a great contribution. And I think that wherever you are in the world listening to this, that's your chance in His Majesty's name to make an impact, to people to see your good works, for the Almighty in His name. That's very important.
Yes, yeah, man, give thanks, my lord. Yeah, well, we'll look forward, for doing more works, as I say, because, it's, to honor and glory and magnify I and I, father and mother still. So, yeah, man, I and I is all for that, my lord, because this is all a part of it, so, yeah, we'll extend the work, my lord. We'll continue the work, from this point here on, So I want to thank there again, for taking the time. It's been truly intriguing and interesting reasoning with the my lord. And, we look forward to part 2 because, there's
more. There's so much more to cover. And I look forward to welcoming the eye to Fairfield House with the family, to do the tour of the house as well, to learn some of these more intricate stories, what was happening to the Emperor and his family whilst he was living there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I look forward, my lord. Yeah, man, looking forward. And how people can get in touch with the house and the eye, or they can find you.
Yes, personally, I'm on Instagram, Benji, with 2 eyes at the end. That's my handle there. And House of His Majesty is what I would tell ones to follow, That's the daily movements, what's happening in the Fairfield House. Stay in touch with the house. And we're on all the social medias, House of His Majesty. And we have a radio station, Imperial Voice Radio. I had a little podcast I'm going to revive that was playing from there. And just to stay tuned, to support the works, because it's not just I. There's many ones that are putting in this works for His Majesty's legacy here. And all support is appreciated.
Yes, yeah, man. Volunteer Ethiopians, Yeah, we give thanks. Yeah, man. Give thanks, Ras Benji, for taking the time again. Manners and respect and more love and strength to the I and the I family, my lord. And we look forward to see the I soon.
Yes, I. Haile Selassie the First, Jesus Christus, be praised. Rastafari.
Amasakanala.
Blessed love. Tenestili. Keep going.
My lord. Yes, honorable family. Yeah, there you have it. I tell you what a powerful reasoning with my brother Ras Benji. Zin. Yeah, man. The moderator at Fairfield House in Bath. Zin. Yeah, man. Manners and respect. Yeah, we give thanks. Zin. And honorable family, please remember to push the like button Alright, please like the video, that's important. See? Yeah man, manners and respect. And before you go, you don't know we're on a journey into Africa, and we're looking there at them strength and support. Zine, a 7-month journey documenting the Rastafari elders in Africa, and also doing some philanthropist works with the homeless kids in Ghana by feeding them for starters, making sure that them have food and drinking water. So that's what we'll be doing while we're out there in Africa for the 7 months. And we have a GoFundMe campaign, and would love your strength and support to make this a reality. Alright, so the link is in the description, so just pay attention to the video. Alright, manners and respect.
Hello wonderful people, welcome to I Just Stars the Mindset. Today I want to take you on a journey, one that promises to transform lives across Africa. Our mission is simple yet profound, empowering communities, celebrating culture and nourishing lives. Over the next 7 months, we'll be traveling to 7 different countries, connecting with Rastafari elders, documenting their incredible wisdom and celebrating their rich cultural heritage. But our mission goes beyond just interviews and storytelling. In Ghana, where the streets echo with the laughter and resilience of homeless children, we extend our hand. Through our campaign, we aim to provide nourishment, education and hope to these young souls. Picture this. A child who once wandered the streets now has a place to learn and grow. That's the power of collective effort. Our vision is to create a ripple effect of positive change, extending beyond Ghana to touch the lives of children all across Africa. Imagine communities uplifted, traditions preserved and compassion sown, like seeds in fertile soil, and this is where you come in. We invite you to join us in this mission. Together, we can uplift communities, preserve traditions, and sow seeds of compassion. Let's be the change we wish to see in the world. If you resonate with our cause, we invite you to support us. Your contribution, whether big or small, will make a difference. Visit our GoFundMe page to donate and share our journey with your friends and followers on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Every pound counts, and together we can create lasting impact. Thank you for being part of I Just Stars the Mindset. Let's spread love, hope and positivity across Africa and beyond. Stay blessed.
Time to rise. Time to open up your third eye. Full time you start to realize that all this time they've been telling us one bag of lies. Telling us a God in the sky that for you and I he die. Jenko Jesus or meek or mild. These things they taught us from we were a child. False indoctrinating the innocent minds. Mind control is the signs of the time. Android, cyborg, AI, all these things combined. All these things combined might sound like a rhyme, but the evidence is right before your eyes. Under no disguise, the age of Aquarius is the shifting of the time. Sun, moon, stars, the planet in the cosmos align. As the cosmos align, low vibration frequency decline. You strengthen your mind. Access to knowledge, information from the Almighty Creator Divine. Creator Divine. The time arise. I feel with time for rise. The time appointed, because I am anointed. The time arise. I feel with time for rise. The time appointed, because I am anointed.
Smash that subscribe button. See you video. I just start the mind. Smash that subscribe button. Video. I just start the mindset.